All right, welcome back everyone. So we are still on our introduction to basic shapes. In this video, we're going to look at the swatch panel and we're going to look at some fill and stroke options. The swatch panel is your color options. We're going to work with just the defaults that Illustrator provides in this video, but we will get more advanced and complex as we move along. So now that we have all these wonderful shapes and we have a bit of an idea on how to make all these different types of shapes, we're going to go ahead and give them all a different look. So one thing that I did want to mention too is that all of your tools over here have hotkeys, and you can see what that hotkey is. It just has it on the end here. So the regular selection tool is V, and then the direct selection tool is the A key. You can change those keys in preferences if you want to at some point. But just so you know, you can toggle back and forth between those. So you can see as I'm hitting A and V, my selection cursor icon changes. And it changes how this shape is selected. If it's selected the entire object with the selection tool, you can see that wireframe pop up. So anyways, let's go ahead and give a little bit of a different look to our shapes here. And we are going to do that in the swatch panel. So we're gonna come on over to our sidebar. Now, if you ever are in one of these tutorials and you're looking and you're like, I don't have a swatch panel, you can find all of those windows over here. So if I go through here and I'm looking for swatches, so here's swatches. If I go in here and select it, you're gonna see, oh, it should disappear. I guess having it on this particular bar is a little bit different, but you can always access your windows if you can't find something over here and selecting it. You can see there that it pops up the swatch panel. Another thing that I want to say with these tutorials, and it's true for tutorials in all of my classes, is that you will run into something that hangs you up in the tutorial. And I want to make sure that if something isn't working for you, you know, that don't let it hang you up and cause a bunch of stress. And, you know, I want you to know that in these tutorials, you know, I'm looking that you are able to complete most of the tasks. But if there's just something that I go over that just isn't quite working for you, if it's not critical to the tutorial, you can just skip over it, okay? And then you can also reach out to me for one-on-one assistance, because I can usually just get on Zoom with you or whatever and just help you really quick. And I can help through email sometimes too. So anyway, just make sure that you're not, if one little thing isn't working, to just keep moving forward, and don't let it hang you up and cause a bunch of stress and waste a bunch of your time, basically. So, okay, let's go ahead, and we have our selection tool here. So I have this shape selected, and we're gonna just work with some of the default colors in here. So in your swatch panel, you see all of our default colors here, of course. And then if you click down here, you're gonna see Swatch Libraries menu pop up. You're gonna click down, and there's a whole bunch of just different types of color groups, and then you're actually gonna see some patterns down here too. So let's just go ahead and let's choose ice cream. And so what you're gonna see is you're gonna see all of these ice cream, this little panel pop up, and you're gonna see all this ice cream colors. And if you click on the folder for them, you're gonna see them start to pop up over here in swatches, okay? So let's say I like those out of ice cream, so I'm gonna close that, and then I'm gonna go, let's do kid stuff. So let's look at kid stuff. We got some pretty bright colors in here, not a surprise. And I'm just gonna click a couple in here. And I think that's quite a good amount of colors to work with for this exercise. And I always zoom in as much as I can so that you all can see the screen as clearly as possible. So you certainly don't have to be zoomed in this much. All right, so we've got all these different colors. Now I'm just gonna take my swatch panel and I'm gonna drag and pull it off so that I can kind of see all the colors all the time. And I also wanna be able to see my properties window as well. So let's say I wanna go ahead and change the fill of this shape. I'm gonna click down and you're gonna see all of your color options show up here. So I'm gonna give it this nice pink color, and then for a stroke, I'm gonna go with green. Well, maybe something darker, maybe like I don't know, like this pink or something. The other thing that I want you to know about are all of your different options for strokes. Your stroke can give your artwork quite a bunch of character depending on what you do. So there are more options than even just this, but we'll just go over a few for right now. So first off, we'll talk about cap and corners here shortly. But these are rounded edges, so it doesn't matter for what we're doing. But you can choose how you align your stroke. So right now it's set to have the stroke be even on each side of the path right here that we have for this shape. And if we change it, you can see it goes all to the inside or all to the outside. This can be very useful depending on what you're doing. I'm going to go ahead and leave it centered for now. You can also choose to have your line dashed. Oh, actually, I can show you corner and cap here. So you can have a dashed line and you can choose, you can customize how your gaps are working. And you can do different numbers like so. Now let's say we don't like this rectangle shape. That's where I can go in and choose a rounded edge here if I want. And this gives a little bit different square. It leaves less gaps there. So I'll go ahead and choose the rounded. And then you can choose to have arrowheads if you want. We're just working with closed shapes right now. We're not working with lines yet, so we can't do that to anything that we have. And then this profile is pretty cool. These are really basic. They can get very elaborate, but these cover a lot of the basic needs of any sort of, anything that you're doing. So you can choose the different profiles here. And let's say you do a profile that's big to small like this, and you don't like the way that it's facing, you can reverse it here and get a little bit of a different look. You can, of course, make that more custom, but for right now, we will leave it at that, okay? So, yeah, this is your basic fill and stroke. And so we can also, if we go over here to the panel, let's go ahead and just do basic graphics and let's choose lines. So you're gonna see your lines show up here, and the patterns don't really work the way, well, I guess they do show up in the swatches panel, but you can't add them in the same way that we were adding like the ice cream and kids stuff, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and just pick one of these. Let's do this one. You're gonna see that it overwrites the color that I had because it's filling with a pattern. And there's a way that we can adjust that, but we will get there. We will get there in the future. So anyways, and then you can see that the pattern shows up in the swatch panel up here in the top, but patterns cannot, yeah, it's yelling at me. Patterns cannot go down into these folders. And I don't think gradients can either, but you can see there are gradients here. Okay, so you can choose some basic, and you see every one that I click on, it's adding it over here in the swatch panel as a fill option for this project, and that kind of helps you keep a log of like what you've been choosing and things like that. So let's go ahead and close that. And yeah, so I think that's all we're gonna look at here. I'm gonna go ahead and change my fill back to, what was it, this color here. And yeah, so I want you to just take a few moments and go through and play around with different fills. You can also get into gradients, which are right here. So let's choose maybe some gems and jewels. And you can go through. Now, obviously, gradients can be very custom and they can be modified quite a bit. So you can, we'll get into that a little bit later. I'm just showing you around a little bit here. So definitely go in and play around with these to just take a few minutes. So you can pause the video here and do that if you like. We are actually going to move on. Okay, one other thing that I wanted to show you really quick with the corner option in your stroke is that now that we have a square selected that does something that doesn't have rounded corners, you can choose these two different profiles here. So, okay, so what I am going to do is I'm going to open my other empty project, which is what you all started with. And we're going to start another artboard. So you should, in your project, have an artboard with just some basic shapes. They can look however you made them. That's perfectly fine. We're just going to leave this as is and start work on another artboard. So in your project, what you're going to do is you are going to click on your artboard window. If you don't see this over here, you can simply find it right here. And you can see here that you have one artboard in your project. So this is kind of like layers, but it's how many artboards you have. And for us to add an artboard to the project, we're just going to click plus, the little plus sign down here, and it adds a second artboard. Now, you can adjust these. I'm going to go ahead and take my swatch panel and just dock it back over here. You can manipulate your artboards. So if we back out a little bit, you can get a little bit better idea. I tend to like to have more space between my artboards. So we're going to choose the Artboard tool, which is Shift-O for the quick key there. And if we select that, you can see the artboard lights up. And we can move the artboard around. You can also manipulate the size of the artboard like this if you'd like. It's going to be that 16 inches by 16 inches because it copies whatever the last artboard you made. So this is your artboard tool, and this is how you can move that around. And then in the artboard window, you can now see that there's two artboards. You can select artboards from here as well. Projects usually have multiple artboards because you're working on, maybe a design concept and you need to see it a bunch of different ways. So there's artboard number 2. We're going to go ahead and come back to the direct selection tool, and I'm going to go back to my project that I have with my lists and text to remind me what we are going to be working on. So for this, we're going to be making more complex shapes. And we're going to do this using what is known as the Pathfinder Tool. The Pathfinder Tool is pretty awesome. I'm going to dock my tools over there. So this is also a very powerful drawing tool in which you don't have to do freehand line work whatsoever. I have this square selected, so it keeps defaulting back over there. Okay, let's do this. All right. So the first shape that we're going to make is just something really simple. We're going to make this kind of, it's sort of an abstract shape of sorts. And so what I'm going to have you do is I'll just move these shapes around. So, or what I'll do, okay. I'm going to just move these up, I think. You can move assets off of your artboard. Clearly I have text off of my artboard, but sometimes you need to move stuff around. So just to get it out of the way. All right, so we're going to go ahead and make this shape. So what you're going to do is go over here and choose your rectangle tool. I'm actually going to do the rounded rectangle tool, which can be very useful in certain situations. So we're going to take the rounded rectangle tool. We're going to make the main horizontal here. And then I'm just going to proceed to make more of these. And so you can go in and obviously adjust your shapes like so. And I get that rounded edge. You can see I can go in and adjust the rounded edge. And there we go. So I've got basically the same thing. So now what we're going to do is combine these all into one using the Pathfinder. So the Pathfinder is right here. And I'm just going to pull that off. And you can see that there are a bunch of different things. They all have names. So this is, I can't even read it. This is unite minus front, I think, intersect. You know, you can hover all over, but the image gives you a good idea of what they're gonna do, right? So we're gonna select all these shapes. The easiest way to do that is what's called a marquee select. So just click down outside of these shapes and you can see your selection. Just click down and drag, and then we hover over all of these and we've got them all selected. And then we're going to go ahead and just unite these. And so it did unite these. Now it didn't leave a rounded corner here because that's not actually, you know, these were square. So we can fix that after we unite them. So I'm going to go ahead and get my direct selection tool, and I'm going to specifically click. I can go through and shift select all of these. And I can make those adjustments however I like, right? Another way to do this is I'm going to go ahead and make the same shape, but this time with my regular rectangle tool. So just quickly here, I am going to make this shape. Now, something that I can do instead of making this shape over and over again with the shape tool, and this is what I often do, is we're actually going to duplicate this shape and then make some modifications. So with my direct selection tool, or I'm sorry, my selection tool, I keep saying the wrong tool. We're gonna hover over the path like this, and I want you to hold your Option key down. And you see how a double arrow pops up? Click down and drag, and you're gonna see that it duplicates that exact same shape. And that's really, really nice and handy. So I'm gonna go through here and I'm just gonna manipulate some of these to make it a bit more of an abstract, unpredictable shape. There we go. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and marquee select all of these. I'm gonna unite them. Then I'm going to choose my direct selection tool, and I'm going to go ahead and just round those corners this way. So the other thing too, you know, about applications like this, Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, is that there are many different ways to come to the same conclusion. And it's all about just workflow preferences in the end. So, you know, like we got relatively the same thing. There's some different characteristics. It just depends on what it is that you're trying to do and how you prefer to work. So I'm going to pull these off and we are going to do a few more things here. So let's go ahead and copy this one and this one, I think. So let's go ahead and take a look at making this one first. So what we have here is a octagon, and we haven't used that shape tool yet, the Polygon tool. So I'm gonna have you go ahead and select that. I want you to click and drag, but stay clicked down. And if you move your arrow up and down, you're gonna see that it's the same as the star tool, where you can choose how many sides you have to it. If you hold shift down, it's gonna straighten that out. So here's our first shape. Next, I'm going to go ahead and make an oval. I'm really looking for this outside shape here that I'm going to make first. So I'm going to go ahead and just make an oval, and then I'll manipulate it. And it looks like I need it to have a little bit different shape down here. So what I'm going to do is get my direct selection tool. I'm going to grab this anchor and I am going to maybe pull it like so. And there's no exact, science to any of this. It just depends on what it is that you're trying to make. All right, so I'm going to make mine a little bit off. This is more geometric. And then I'm just going to make sure that that wall is hitting there. Okay, there we go. So I have my two shapes, and I'm going to go ahead and unite these. So I'm going to select both of them. You can shift select or marquee select. Gonna go ahead and unite those shapes. And I have an issue here actually, and this is probably a good lesson, that having that sort of abstract looking shape and not having it geometric made my artwork a little bit sloppy. And you really want to avoid stuff like this when you are doing professional work. So this is actually probably a good example of what not to do. So let me think about this. Let's say I'm trying to, I don't know if you're designing a letterhead or, making a particular type of illustration. We cannot submit this to anybody like so, right? This needs to be cleaner. So that's where you kind of think about it, and you think about it more as like a puzzle. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this. And I'm going to get my octagon tool again, or polygon tool, excuse me. And I'm going to go ahead and make this shape again, and I need to think about how I want to do this. I think that I'm going to need to use the triangle tool, actually. I think that's going to give me what I want. So actually I need the star tool to get to my triangle. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out the shape. And I just still had a setting from before when I was showing you with the option key and the command key, how you can manipulate the shapes. So I went ahead and adjusted that. All right, so I'm going to hold my shift key down. It looks like it's off. It's off from what it considers to be aligned. So let me go ahead and grab it again. Maybe if I hold shift down. There we go. Okay, so I'm just holding shift and option down to get my perfect rectangle. So I'm going to go ahead and let go. Now I'm going to come and just flip this upside down. And what I want is for these points to match up perfectly with those bottom points. And let me go ahead and zoom in here and see how that's looking. And that's looking pretty good. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and actually unite these before I round the bottom, but I think it's going to need to be quite a bit bigger. So I'm going to take the triangle and I'm going to drag it down. And then I'm going to select both of these, unite them, come over, grab my direct selection. And I made a mistake. I didn't want all of those to round. I need to isolate the bottom. So I'm in a Command Z, my favorite key in the world, which is undo. And I'm going to drag this up. And I've got a much closer shape that I was going for. But I need it to be a little bit more pointier. So I'm going to go like that, bring it down, and then I can go ahead and grab my direct selection tool and bring it up a little bit. So that's more of the shape that I was going for. All right, now I need to make a hole in it, because if I put a fill on this, I can see that this hole is actually part of the shape. So what we're going to do is go ahead and just punch it out. So minus the front is what we want to do. So we're going to create a circle that will act as a cookie cutter in a sort of way. So if I hold down Shift and Option, I'm going to get that option to make a circle from the center. You can see that guide is popping up, showing me at least the center going vertically. I'm going to go ahead and create it. Now I'm going to come over to my selection tool. I'm going to select the bottom, Shift, select the top. We're going to minus the front. We're going to give it a fill. Maybe green, and you can see that it's built a shape with a hole in it. Now the moon is pretty simple. That's just going to be 2 ellipses that are cut out. So here's ellipse 1, circle 1. I am going to just duplicate that and drag. And then I'm going to click the one that would be, you know, the bottom, I guess. Shift select the one that's on top. And we're going to do minus the front. And now we have a moon. Okay. So we're going to do a couple more shapes. I'm going to end this particular video where we're at. So that it doesn't run too long. So we're just going to go to File and Save. It's always good to save your work. And you can go ahead and take a break now or carry on to the next video. It's completely up to you. All right, see you in the next video. Bye.